My name is Juan Martinez Avila, and this is Soma Design for NIME, a paper that I wrote with Vasiliki Tsaknaki, Pavel Karpishevich, Charles Wendlin, Nicholas Valenti, and Christina Hook from KTH, as well as Andrew McPherson from Queen Mary University of London, and my supervisor Steve Benford from the University of Nottingham. In this paper, we report on 2 collaborative workshops where we explore the design space of new interfaces for musical expression through novel Soma design methods which are emerging in HCI. In this case, we specifically address the subjective experience of playing the guitar to generate new design concepts in this space, such as the stretchy straps and breathing guitars you see here. Further in this talk, I will go into more detail about our Soma design process. But first, we should acknowledge that the body as a subject of research within NIME is not something new. There is extensive research on the relationship between musical instruments and the body. There is also work that examines the musical bodily gestures of performers via motion capture and analysis, and performances in which the body is harnessed as a musical instrument. There are of course many other examples, so this is by no means the whole picture of the research being done. However, we find that there's a lack of work that refers to the performer's subjective experience of their body and the sensations that arise while playing an instrument as a fundamental component of the design process. So this is where Soma design enters the picture. Soma design is an emerging paradigm in HCI research, inspired by the philosophy of somasthetics. The word somasthetics is composed by the term soma, that is, our non-dualistic subjective self, body, emotion, and thinking, and the term aesthetics, referring to our ability to aesthetically appreciate the world around us and what we feel, hear, see, and engage with. Hence, Soma design focuses on designing with and through the Soma, and is mainly concerned with the first-person perspective of aesthetic and sensuous experiences, and on honing the ability to discern such somatic experiences and harness them to devise interactive experiences. So how do we do Soma design? One way of attuning our body to become more aware of its fine nuances is to engage with bodily explorations such as Feldenkrais exercises or contact improvisation. Through these exercises, non-habitual movements are explored in order to refocus our attention to parts of our body which are not usually engaged in our habitual movements, and to elicit new ways of thinking about our bodies. These bodily explorations can also be supported by the use of materials. In this case, we use Soma bits, which are a series of soft shapes that may be stacked or chained together and placed in different parts of the body. These shapes can also be combined with different actuators, including vibration, heat, inflatables, and other shape-shifting materials. Soma bits are useful for ideation and lo-fi concept design work by making affordances and properties of speculative interactions tangible. Let's now turn to an illustration of how we put this into practice and how we can harness these design methods within NIME. Our design explorations consisted of 2 workshops involving NIME and Soma designers. In the first workshop at the Mixed Reality Lab, we focused on the experience of balance as the design theme. In the second workshop, we focused on the experience of tension and release. In both workshops, Feldenkrais practitioners led the bodily explorations. As you can see, the structures of the workshops are fairly similar. However, there were slight particularities in each one, which I will now highlight. The first workshop involved 4 groups, each working on a different design project. One of them was my PhD project on augmenting guitars. Our group consisted of 2 guitarists and 2 Soma designers. The focus on balance and whole body interaction in Workshop 1 led us to develop the transitional concepts of stretchy strap and cushy pedals, which we'll now see in action. The idea here is that the balancing of the body over the soft pedals and the stretchiness of the strap is used to modulate audio effects. However, we also explore other concepts such as providing haptic feedback through the feet. After the workshop, we reflected on the design process and realized that it was challenging for non-guitarists to design for guitars, but their non-familiarity with the instrument also contributed to generating interesting ideas. In the second workshop, we carried forward the concepts from Workshop 1 and refined them by applying the theme of tension. To experiment with tension, we performed relevant Feldenkrais exercises, which in turn help us to sharpen our bodily awareness of breathing. And this led to further experiments with inflatables attached to the body of the player and the body of the guitar. This time, we also aim to familiarize non-guitarists with the instrument by, for example, sharing a guitar between a guitarist and a non-guitarist, but also defamiliarize guitarists from their ingrained habits by adding actuators to their fingers, among other activities. We then generated two concepts of breathing guitars. The first one builds upon the original idea of the stretchy strap, with the addition of a second horizontal strap wrapped around the waist, in addition to the one across the shoulder. The idea behind this was to explore an additional axis of movement, that is, pushing the guitar away in addition to pulling it down. An inflatable bit was also added around the waist and belly. The idea here is to have a sensor and actuator that pushes against the torso but also reacts to the player's breathing, which may be used for sonification or to provide comfort to the performer. The second concept consists of a guitar with inflatable sections which apply pressure to various points of contact with the guitarist's body. In this case, the guitar may act autonomously, inflating itself in response to the player's breathing or refusing to let them play at some parts of the neck, provoking them to break habitual playing patterns or to improvise. So in conclusion, Soma design may bring a fresh perspective to designing NIMEs. In particular, it allowed us to question assumptions about the instrument by defamiliarizing our usual ways of interacting with the instrument, thus bringing other aspects to the fore, which usually remain implicit. Also, by encouraging us to focus on the first-person bodily experience before technology and sound generation. Moreover, having guitarists and non-guitarists involved in groups proved to be useful as their non-familiarity with the instrument generated interesting ideas, but it's also important to familiarize them to some extent for them to be more involved with the process. And lastly, we hope that this paper will inspire the NIME community to explore Soma design methods when designing for bodily interactions with musical instruments. So this has been Soma Design for NIME. You can read the full paper in the link and QR code provided. Please feel free to reach me out if you have further questions, and thanks for listening.